If you don't understand what a data center actually is, none of the numbers will make sense. Imagine your phone. When you type a question into ChatGPT, your phone doesn't just answer by itself. Your phone is just a screen with Wi-Fi. The actual thinking happens somewhere else in a warehouse. A giant windowless industrial warehouse which is filled with metal racks, and each rack is installed with thousands of these chips. That warehouse is called a data center. Each one of these buildings can hold 100,000 NVIDIA GPUs. Each NVIDIA GPU costs $30,000 to $40,000. So one building holds $3 to $4 billion worth of chips. One building just holds $3 to $4 billion worth of chips. This $3 to $4 billion is just for chips. On top of that, you have to power them, cool them, connect them with high-speed cables, and build them with concrete, security, and fire suppression. All in all, a single large AI data center costs $10 to $25 billion to build. And this is where the race is happening. Like I told you in the data center case study, if you look at this graph, in 2010, the world created or replicated 2 zettabytes of data. That's roughly 2 trillion gigabytes. But fast forward to today, something terrifying is happening. By 2026, the world is projected to generate 221 zettabytes of data. That's over 100x more than in 2010. So the world is producing more data in a month than it did in all of history until 2010. This is the reason why the investment in data centers has shot up from $90 billion to $725 billion in just the last 6 years. Now here's the number that made me question everything that is happening. The PIMCO report says that big tech capex will consume 94% of operating cash flows. I repeat, 94% of operating cash flows over the next 2 years. You know what that means? If big tech earns $100, they will spend $94 back into building AI infrastructure. Only $6 will be left for dividends, buybacks, salary hikes, innovation, and everything else. In 2023, that same ratio was just 40%. And now it stands at 94%. So do you realize big tech is betting 94% of all its money into just one assumption? And the assumption says that in just 5 years, the world will need so much AI compute that every dollar being spent right now will practically look like a bargain. Sounds unstoppable, right? After all, we are producing so much data. Well, here's where it gets dangerous. Now let's forget economics for a second and just imagine that you're a business owner. Let's say you spend $10 million building a coffee machine factory. Now imagine that after all that, your factory only sells $400,000 worth of coffee machines in a year. So you just make $400,000 from a factory that cost you $10 million. Is that good, bad, or terrible? You tell me. It's terrible, right? Why would you build another factory if your current factory doesn't make any money? Now, take that exact same example and apply it to AI. Now let me show you the math. JP Morgan sat down and did this calculation, and their logic was pretty simple. If you're an investor and you put money into something, you would at least expect a 10% return. That's bare minimum any serious investor demands on a risky bet like this. So JP Morgan said, for AI giants to justify all the money that they're spending, how much money does AI actually need to bring in every year? The answer was $650 billion every single year. Okay, now remember this figure, $650 billion. Now, do you know how much AI is actually earning right now? Let's add it up. OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, make $25 billion a year and they're losing $14 billion a year. Anthropic is said to make $47 billion at best if their current run rate goes on for 1 year. As of now, the target for Anthropic is about $26 billion by the end of this year. And let's say Gemini also makes $25 billion. So every major AI model company combined make around $75 billion, with OpenAI losing $14 billion and Anthropic losing $3 billion in 2025 alone. Now put these three numbers side by side. Money that AI needs to earn to make sense, $650 billion. Money AI is actually earning, $75 billion. Money that AI is losing is minimum $17 billion. But the money that the giants are spending on top of all of this is $725 billion. That difference between what they earn and what they need to earn is about 9 to 10 times. Now read that one more time slowly. For every single dollar that the AI industry is bringing in, the tech giants are spending 9 to 10 times more than they earn. This is why Sequoia's David Kahn calls this the $600 billion question. A $600 billion annual revenue deficit that nobody knows who will fill. Now, the single biggest argument against this crazy number is, Ganesh, enterprises will pay money. Every single one of these companies will become profitable and investors will make money when the enterprises will pay money. Because AI is making all enterprises very, very efficient at dirt cheap cost. Okay. Well, that is not the right argument, because even I thought the same, and then I found the surveys. McKinsey says 73% of enterprise AI deployments are failing to achieve projected return on investment. BCG says only 5% of companies are seeing substantial ROI from AI. MIT says there is a 95% failure rate in achieving measurable financial returns. Only 29% of the executives can even measure their AI return on investment. And this is where the story gets its first phase. Meet Flo Crivello. He runs an AI startup in San Francisco called Lindy. They have about 25 employees. In June 2026, he did an interview with CNBC that shook the AI industry. His team was spending more on Anthropic's Claude API than on their entire payroll. So you know what Flo did? Flo switched 100% of his traffic to DeepSeek and his cost dropped by 90%. And then Uber CTO admitted publicly that Uber had blown its entire annual AI budget in just 4 months. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the twist. Because everyone assumed that enterprises would keep paying more and more for AI tokens forever. That was the whole model. That is why OpenAI is worth $850 billion. That is why Anthropic is worth $965 billion. But in June 2026, enterprise started doing something that the market did not expect. They started looking for cheaper alternatives. Which is why Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, went on CNBC and said this on 1st of July.
Every single enterprise I deal with, they're like, I am paying for tokens that create no value. These people are stealing the weights and alpha of my business, and they're creating a wealth tax. And the reason for it is because these models have been completely irresponsibly oversold.
And Palantir, if you saw our previous case study, is one of the biggest software enterprise companies on earth. They sell to the CIA, the US government, Airbnb, JP Morgan, and God knows how many large companies. And the CEO of that company is telling you that something has completely gone wrong. Now at this point, I know exactly what you're thinking. You must be thinking, yeah Ganesh, this is a rich man's problem. Nvidia losing 500 billion, Sam, Dario, Sundar, they're all billionaires. How am I getting affected by all of this? Well, let me take you to South Korea and show you how. This is a factory in South Korea that is owned by Samsung. This factory makes a very specific kind of memory chip called DRAM. The same DRAM that goes into your laptop, your smartphone, your Xbox, and even your washing machine. In 2024, Samsung had a choice. It could sell its DRAM to consumer companies like Apple, HP, or Dell, or it could sell a special, extremely expensive version called high bandwidth memory to AI data centers. And guess which one pays more? The AI data centers paid 10x more per module. So Samsung, SK Hynix and Micron, the three companies that control 90% of the world's memory chip supply, did what any factory would do. They shifted 93% of their production towards AI memory. Because that is the rule of capitalism, right? Capital always flows to the highest bidder. Now watch what happens at bigger scales. DRAM prices are up by 171% year over year as of March 2026. DDR5 memory are up 4x since September 2025. Contract price for PC memory is up by 105 to 110% in 1 quarter. In fact, Dell CEO said that the price of 1 gigabyte of DRAM went from $0.43 to $2.39 in just 6 months. That is a 5.5 times increase in price. In fact, that is why on 25th of June 2026, Apple did something that it had never done before. In the middle of a product year, Apple simply raised their prices. This is the reason why they said, we have never seen a component price increase this much, this quickly. We've shielded our customers from these increases so far, but now we've reached a point where we need to begin raising prices. Now that is Apple telling you this, guys. The richest, most vertically integrated tech company in the world is telling you that they cannot absorb this cost. That is how you are paying the AI tax. But this is where a scary question arises. If enterprises are moving off Claude to save 90%, if Apple cannot absorb cost anymore, if the ROI is broken, then why are Amazon, Microsoft, Google and Meta still spending more? Well, the answer is one of the most fascinating concepts in economics, and it explains every single bubble in human history. It's called the capital cycle. In this cycle, there are 4 steps. Step number 1, high returns attract capital. Step number 2, capital keeps flowing until overcapacity is built. Step 3, return overcapacity eventually results into collapse. And step 4, everyone dies except a few survivors who eventually make a fortune when demand catches up. And every bubble in modern history has followed this exact same pattern. Let me show you how. In 1996, the US passed the Telecommunications Act because just like AI, the internet back then was a life-changing technology which was exploding in demand. The story was so intoxicating because it was clear to the world that internet was the future, data traffic was exploding, and everybody just knew that bandwidth demand would grow forever. Some founders even believed that internet traffic would double every 3 months. So money came pouring in to build the fiber optic cables. And then came the flood. Several companies raced to lay fiber optic cables across the country. And in just 5 years after that act, telecom companies poured more than $500 billion into cables, switches, and networks. And if you look at the financials of these companies, you will see why the AI bubble is very similar. A company called Global Crossing went from a small equity check to a $47 billion valuation without ever making a single year of profit. Corvus, a fiber equipment startup, pulled off a $1.1 billion IPO with literally $0 in revenue and carried a $32 billion market cap. And just when everyone thought they'll become millionaires and billionaires, the collapse happened. You know what happened? Everyone thought that the internet will explode by 1000% year on year. But the internet traffic only exploded by 100% year on year, which was great, but not great enough to justify the cost of investment. You know how much of this installed fiber was actually utilized? Take a guess. 50%, 20%, 10%, at least 5% must have been utilized, right? Well, guess what? By early 2000s, as little as just 2.7% of the installed fiber was actually carrying data. Over 95% sat unused underground. That is how trillions of dollars of cable got buried without earning anything. So when there was no revenue, bandwidth prices collapsed by up to 90% and the giants started failing.